Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to season number 2 of Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series action. Coming off our Easter weekend, we are back on the racetrack here from Auto Club Speedway in Southern California. I'm Francisco Bacaya, welcoming you to race number 7 of season number 2, where we're continuing from our last time out at the Texas Motor Speedway, where everything was just very, very much a high intensity, high action-packed flying. We're here at Auto Club. We have a good couple of races coming up here after this evening when we kick things off here from Auto Club this evening, followed by the All-Star race. We're going to be going All-Star racing next week. No points will be awarded in that one, just I believe a cash prize that the league will announce during this week to all the drivers, preceded by an open, meaning the top 3 drivers from that open are the ones that advance into the main, unable to qualify. 40 laps as that open. The All-Star race itself being 100 laps divided by a 50-lap opening segment, 35 in the second, and a 15-lap shootout to the end to determine our winner. That'll be next week. Tonight we do have Auto Club, and taking a look back in the rearview mirror, we do have some highlights to go over about last time out over at the Texas Motor Speedway, where it was myself and Kenneth Bueno on the call. Kenneth in South Carolina, not going to be here with us this evening, but it was a really intense race from start to finish. We had really good racing up and down the field. Warren Powell Keith was one of those drivers making the high side known very, very early, putting it to good use, taking the lead away from pole sitter Alex Muscarella. And here we see Kip Easley, Cedric Hunter. They were putting on a fight in the back end of the top 10 when trouble struck here for the 23 Charles Van Schaik. You see a good moment there with the 23, or rather the 32 of Richard Swavely makes hard contact with the ball, breaks the suspension on that car, ends up going for a spin. Another spin would happen further back in the field. Daniel Holdrop would go around on the back straightaway, putting us under another yellow flag before 48. Muscarella gets big time loose, gets some aero pack and overcorrects hard into the outside wall, cutting 48 stays short. Getting another car involved there, requiring some extra damage. Steven Sempion, though, eventually it was his time to shine and make his way forward through this field, putting up a fight to these 24 machine, trying to take the lead away. Justin Erb also was making an appearance. He showed some good speed all night, and he ended up getting the lead away from teammate Warren Kalkeith before having his own mistake. There's getting a piece of it. Doors completely open for Stepien, and that ruined the night ultimately for the number 20 machine. Jaden Porter would end up making a green flag pit stop. We'd have a huge green flag sequence here throughout this race. Multiple different strategies going on. When you pit was going to be important, as well as the possibility of if you pit twice compared to once, but all that would go sideways right here. Big contact between the 24 and the 32, resulting in a late yellow flag in this race. Strategy would end up playing a role, and whether you pit or not was also just as big of a factor. Warren Palkeith tries to take the 2 tires to end up with the lead, but on a restart, Cedric Hunter does a good job of staying to the inside of Keith, takes the spot away going into turns 3 and 4, cruises on the final lap, and is able to take his second win of the season, and he ends up being the first repeat winner of season number 2. So great stuff from Cedric Hunter on being able to do so after winning at Iowa earlier this season. He now adds a second victory to his campaign, already more than last time out, so I'm sure that that's something the driver of the 45 is very much looking forward to, and he's going to see if he can add a possible third victory here today from the Auto Club Speedway. And let's take a quick look at our points here for season number 2. It is still tight up at the top of the standings. The likes of Brandon Banks still leading the points, and he has a pretty healthy margin on Jaden Porter. Porter had his mistakes from last time out, and he's trying to see if he can recover some of that and make up the ground on Banks. Charles Van Schaik has done a pretty good to end up in the 3rd position, has had some solid runs. Same could be said for Garrett Walden to find himself up in 4th, just a whole point ahead of Steven Stempin. You can see just how tight it is really from Walden all the way down to possibly Warren Kyle Keith, just a handful of points that can really fluctuate in tonight's showing. And even tighter when you get all the way back to Kip Easley. Muscarella only 2 points out after a disastrous race After starting on the pole, Ray Rogers has had a shaky start to his season. Stephen Harlow missed a race back at Kentucky. He's still trying to make up some of that ground here. He's 29 out. Jesse Whittington has showed some flashes. Christian McCrelly as well. Matthew Perusini, he's had some flashes. Justin Earp looked like it could have been a big points day for him, but instead it ended up being troublesome. He sits 42 points out. Still early going. Still plenty of races left to go on the season before we crown who our 12 driver chase ends up being, though you definitely don't want to dig yourself much bigger of a hole than you are right now. So still plenty of opportunities for drivers to try and make up the ground, to try and get back into the thick of things, and we'll see how that ends up unfolding here this evening. Let's take a quick look at our Auto Club Speedway, what we have here tonight. No longer with us on the NASCAR Cup Series side of things, but still very much alive here on the sim. A fan favorite racetrack that opened back in the 90s in NASCAR when it was expanding over to the West Coast back in 97, known as the California Speedway for a long time before making that name change to Auto Club Speedway in the late 2000s. 14 degrees of banking on both ends of the racetrack, 11 on the front stretch, 3 on the back stretch, 2 miles in length. Sister track to Michigan International Speedway, very much a lot of speed carried here around the Auto Club Speedway. You see drivers going up from the white lines all the way up to the outside walls, and even a bit of the apron in turn 3 with the way the apron is banked on that end of the racetrack. Because some drivers go all the way down there in hopes of trying to find some sense of pace, some sense of hope on trying to make up some track position. So we'll see what is in store here this evening and what drivers are able to do to try and make up the best as they can. And with that being said, qualifying has been completed. Drivers are starting to grid up on the behind the iRacing official pace car. So let's get trackside and bring to our starting lineup from this evening's race here from the Auto Club Speedway. And on the pole, what a pole position this is for the number 22 of Kevin Roy. He'll roll off from the front of the field. He's got a 39.719 in the number 22 machine, alongside Justin Irv, who's looking to turn things around from last week's disappointment, just barely behind the number 22 from being able to take his own pole position right on that one. They'll be the front row for this race. Stephen Harlow will be in that third spot, just barely ahead of Brandon Banks, your season 2 point leader, and the number 5 machine. Fifth goes to Jesse Whittington in the number 94, looking to turn things around. Alex Muscarello is very much in the same position, only 2 points out, looking to see if he can move on the positive end of the cut line with a solid performance here from the California racetrack. Warren Kyle Keith, the Florida native, is going to be rolling off 7th, of Garrett Walden in the number 43 rolling off in 8th. Richard Swavely kicking off in the 9th spot with Cedric Hunter, two-time race winner this season, defending winner from Texas, looking to go 2 in a row, get number 3 here tonight. Daniel Holdcroft going to be rolling off in 11th with Brad Fullen to his outside in the 12th spot. Charles Van Schaik, Jaden Porter, two drivers looking to turn things around from Texas, looking to do something from row 7. Stempion is going to be rolling off from the 15th position, looking to try and capture a second win on the season, the Atlanta winner, alongside Kip Easley in the number 8 machine. Timothy Stubblefield going to be down in the 17th position with Christian McCrelly, first driver not to take a lap time here, rolling off 18th. David Durand is going to be in the 19th spot. Alex Huffman is going to be in 20th. 21st, Jason Anderson, the number 92. And rounding out our 22 car field here tonight is the 28 of Casey Knighton. Let's take a quick look at our SK Racing Sim Racing analysis, where we've got 150 laps in store this evening from the Auto Club Speedway. 300 miles, just under 500 kilometers, whatever those are, from this fantastic racing facility. Part of it does remain active, or rather in place, after the land was sold. Part of the track was demolished. You have bits from turn 4 over to just past the front straightaway that very much still sit there, but it continues to live a life here on the sim, where these drivers try to go visit at least once every season in various different leagues, and it still puts on great performances. We're going to get ready to see another one here from the Auto Club Speedway, where it's Kevin Roy, Justin Erb that will lead us to the green flag for round number 7, and we're racing in California. Great start for Kevin Roy. He'll lead lap number 1 from Justin Erb. Brandon Banks drops down to the 4th spot, who peaked outside in turn number 1 to try and see if he can gain a couple of positions, but he'll settle down there just behind the 6 of Stephen Harlow. We saw a driver drop to the back. I'm not quite sure who it was exactly, but everybody nice and clean through these first couple laps. You could see a lot of green flag racing here tonight due to the nature of a little bit less cars on the racetrack. It is a long one, these 150 laps, and everyone's going to try to see if they can get by this race as quickly as possible. Green flag racing has been in the nature so far in season number 2. If we can keep this up, it is going to be a good one, as there's Daniel Holdcroft looking to try and get a run on the 48. And you got to listen right there. This is onboard Jesse Whittington. Already, fuel games being played. He's pushing the clutch in on lap number 3. Interesting to see already that drivers are looking to try and play the fuel mileage game, but with a possible fuel window of somewhere between laps 46 and 48, you start adding it up and you're getting a couple laps close to being able to two-stop this race. And like I mentioned, with the possibility of a long green flag run, you got to think about the existing chances of being able to do just that. You want to try and give yourself an opportunity to make one less pit stop, one less trip down the pit lane, especially if tire fall off isn't all that much. Now, Auto Club Speedway inherently is a track that experiences tire wear, but here on iRacing with these next gen cars, the outright fall off just doesn't exist, at least not to that same extent that we tend to see in real life. So we'll see how drivers manage that if they decide to 3-stop this race and what the strategy ends up being. Banks thought about making a move to the inside of Stephen Harlow, but nothing doing there. Instead, Harlow gets a great run to the back of Justin Erb, trying to see if he can make possibly a move for second further back. That's to the outside. Timothy Stubblefield getting around the 43 with a great power move around the outside. Some good racing in this pack. Jan Porter a few positions behind in that 82 machine. And there's Steven Stemping, who came up short of that win at Texas last week. Has put on some really good performances, and he's trying to put a couple of standout ones to really separate Season 1 from Season 2 in this Droppin' the Hammah series. Has been really quick on some of these long runs, has been able to save his tires well. He gets a little bit loose right there. He's going to try to chase it up the racetrack. He can't quite slide in front of Porter. Porter, though, is going to push him down the back straightaway. Now peeks back to the outside, and we're going to see drivers fanning all the way out on the racetrack. Some might go below that apron, others maybe even higher than what that 82 is currently doing. But they're going to end up 3 wide, contact a little bit between Walden and Porter. But Porter with the biggest run off the top side of the racetrack and some draft. He's going to clear for that spot. As further up the road, there you see Muscarella getting passed by Stubblefield, who's done a great job in this opening run. He's already up into the top 5. And Muscarella's been dropping a couple of positions now. He's got Holdcroft behind him. There's Porter now peeking to the inside of that 94 machine. Walden might try to take a crack at it, but that's another spot for this 82. And Porter, remember, has gotten some wins already this season. One at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, is the Dover winner from last season. Whittington now makes a move back to the inside, trying to challenge back for that 8th place spot. But the driver of this 82, he's shown that he can be quick, not just here, but in our other series that we run on the KBueno Racing Network, to say the least. Still competing for a championship on the 4-wide racing side of things, which the championship will be held at this venue of Auto Club Speedway. So at least for Jaden, it gives him a really good opportunity to see what the car is going to do in a race condition. Maybe even plan some kind of strategies, or trying to figure out exactly what he can learn from what the racetrack does, what driving in dirty air can do, and try to apply that to that race. That, of course, being on April 29th, the Championship 5 race. As there's Timothy Stubblefield with another move. He's now up to 4th, past Brandon Banks. He's been absolutely flying on the early portion of this run, and you're going to have to watch out for him. You know, drivers that usually tend to move up through the field quick in the first handful of laps. Give it about 10 more, they usually tend to draw back, but we'll see if Stubblefield, if he falls victim to that same situation, or if he just found something that maybe nobody else quite has. That last lap, he was a 10th and a half quicker than your race leader. And speaking of your race leader, he himself has also gotten out to a pretty sizable lead. It's cut down a little bit. It was at one point about 1.1 seconds. Now down to just over 0.8 of a second. As there's Justin Erb, Stephen Harlow peeking to the inside. They haven't really gone side by side on the straightaways, which has allowed them to gain a little bit more speed and close some of that gap down. Here's the onboard look from Stephen Harlow. See the top speeds here approaching 198 miles an hour in this draft with Stephen Harlow, even 11 laps into this run. But you don't want to run directly behind that driver in front. You get caught in that dirty air, it could spell trouble for you. Make the car push tight, go up the racetrack, it kills your momentum. As you see Erb goes up high, trying to keep that momentum wound, whilst Harlow, on the other hand, goes down low, getting that clean air. And now he'll have the draft down the straightaway. Trying to push himself along. There's the 98. David Duran has made up a couple of positions. He's now up to 8th, getting past Daniel Holcroft. As Porters now sits in 7th behind Alex Mascarella. Here's last week's race winner, Cedric Hunter. He's up to 15th. In the Hello Kitty number 45 Toyota Camry. Jason Anderson in the 92 behind him as well. Continuously trying to make up some ground. And speaking of making up ground, Justin Erb is slowly chipping away at race leader. That last lap, it was a 10th to his favor. And like I said, a good part of this helps that he does have some of that draft down these straightaways. It is incredibly helpful. It helps even more that that 6 is pushing him down these straightaways. Maybe not completely intentional by Harlow's part. It helps that he's not exactly getting side by side in the straightaways. He actually might get to the inside there. He had a really good run through turn number 4, but not quite enough to stay side by side. Erb continues to hang on to that spot, but he pulls definitely over half a 10th on this straightaway to continue to close the gap. But Erb has done Roy has done a good job so far. He's maintaining it at about 0.8 of a second. Harlow once again throws it to the bottom side of the racetrack. Almost there on corner exit, but not quite enough for the 6, who continues to stick into 3rd, but definitely showing a lot of promise on being able to probably go a little bit quicker. As Alex Mascarella had a little bit of a moment in the last lap or so, he's dropped back to 9th, now ahead of Steven Stempien, and this has been kind of the demise of this 48, has been lengthy runs. That's where he struggles. He drops back. Has had a tough time saving those tires underneath his race car as he peeks to the inside of Holdcroft for 8th for the moment. But it's been really troublesome. As you see up here, Timothy Stubblefield. Banks made a move in turn 1, but wasn't quite able to complete it. Remains in the 4th spot. As there you see Harlow once again peeking the inside, but he's moved up. He was running the complete bottom of the racetrack, at least in 1 and 2. And now he's moved up a little bit. He's gone more to the middle, while Erb has pushed more into that about 3rd or 4th lane. And now on this end of the racetrack, you see he's about a lane off the wall. Harlow continues to run the bottom. On this end of the racetrack, Erb turns down to 2 lanes. enters on the 4th, goes down to the 3rd. And all in an effort to maintain that track position of 2nd. As there's Banks, how he peeks to the inside of Stubblefield, who goes all the way up to the boards. They will give him a steady runoff here if he's able to play his cards right. As there's David Duran, who's moved up to 6th. A 1/10 and a half quicker than your leaders on that last lap. He's one of the fastest cars, if not the fastest, inside this top 10, alongside this 4 machine of Daniel Holdcroft. Here's the onboard look from this 98 machine. And you hear right there, downshifting. Not many drivers that we've been on board with have downshifted, but Durand is one of them, and what that tells me is he's not in the business of trying to fuel save for a 2-stop strategy. He's probably gunning it, probably trying to hit a number for 3 pit stops in this race, 4 equal runs, probably. As for a moment thought about going to the inside of Banks, unable to make that move. And for the drivers that are stopping 3 times, you're aiming possibly somewhere in the vicinity of lap 35 to 40. It's somewhere in that range is going to be the equal split, as Timothy Stubblefield got a bit of the outside wall a little bit further ahead. Now he's side by side with Banks, who crept to the bottom, trying to take that spot away for 4th. And Duran's going to try to take advantage of this. Look at Banks slide up the racetrack, try to shut off that 9. But Stubblefield retains on the outside. They're going to lose ground to drivers in front, but that's also going to invite David Durand into this fight. In fact, he's going to take it 3 wide to the inside. Banks is going to back out of that one. And Durand's been rolling this bottom, making it work. Clears Banks off the corner. Now he's going to have to tuck in line and try to get momentum to get past this 9 machine. And Holdcroft is slowly closing in a little bit further back as well on Porter. You see the different lines that they're running. Mostly everybody trying to be that one lane off that white line. Seems to be one of the better lines to save tire and hold some speed on your race car. Durand now peeking to the inside. He'll go side by side in turn 1. But Stubblefield with the momentum on the high side, he's going to keep that spot. Durand is trying to fight back with some side draft. He'll tuck in now. It's going to be so tough to complete that pass on the bottom. And that's why he changes it up. You see him move up high into that 3rd lane, and Stubblefield went lower. All the while, Porter with the move to the inside, he clears Banks. Banks will push him down the straightaway. And you see once again this 98, he enters high to try and get to the inside of Stubblefield. And he's there. He is properly side by side off the corner now. Down the back straightaway into turn number 3. But Stubblefield is really making this a hard one to get by. Momentum on the high side in his favor. And he's just hanging on. But this is where Durand has been better. On this end on the racetrack on the bottom. Trying everything he can. Stubblefield, though, still able to make it work. And in fact, he has better position now. He has the run off the corner. Durand can't quite close up. Keep the 9 in 4th. As there you see, Daniel Holdcroft has joined this 5-way fight for positions inside the top 5. Banks shoots up to the middle of the racetrack. Durand back to the bottom on Stubblefield. And if Porter can close up, he could play a role in this fight. As they remain door to door going back to turn number 1. Duran is not giving this one up, and he might get clear here. In fact, he is. He'll slide up confidently off the corner, tags the outside wall in the process, and there's Stubblefield to give him the push down the back straightaway, send him off into turn number 3. As Porter peeks to the inside of the 9, trying to get some of that clean air on his 82 machine. So while all this is going on, the fight at the front of the field is slowly becoming more and more interesting. Kevin Roy getting caught slightly by Justin Erb, those two running the same line. All the while, Stephen Harlow hasn't really been able to make a move on Erb, but this could be a telltale sign for this 22 as he's dropped a couple of positions, or rather a couple of tenths of a second to his competition. Could play a decent role here as we are approaching what could be the first wave of those green flag pit stops. This first set of drivers that could think about making a trip down the pit lane. Could be, like I said, between laps 35 and 40 for the 3 stoppers. 2 stop if you saved enough fuel. Going to be closer to lap 50. And of course, you want to save as much fuel without losing as much time, but if you can buy yourself additional laps, well, it just makes the rest of the race a lot easier. So if someone can go to 51, I'm sure they will probably aim to do so. But of course, a yellow flag at any moment could throw a wrench into all of this, as Erb is really putting in a couple of 2 good laps, and now it's not time as the concern, it is distance between your 2 leaders. And you see now he's gotten close to the point where he has to run somewhere else. Can't run in that wake of your race leader, but he is close enough to that where that draft is making a huge difference. You see, he doesn't want to go completely opposite end of the racetrack. He likes running up there. So at least he kind of turns down mid-corner, closes some of that gap, and he's negating some of that advantage of Roy running higher. Now he's going to have a run towards turn number 1. Does he go for it completely? Gonna be a no for now. Oh, but Roy goes in too deep. He tags the outside wall. It's gonna open the door for Erb down the back straightaway. Roy still has a bit of momentum, but he is not there. Clear is Justin Erb for the race lead. Roy's gonna peek back to the bottom to try and fight back, but that 20 machine has looked quicker. In fact, here's Stephen Harlow now looking to the inside for second. Roy had a bit of a moment there in turns 3 and 4. So move this 6 machine possibly up to second. You see him go all the way down there trying to get clear, but the 22 just has that draft off your race leader. And is able to negate any of that loss he may have had in turns 3 and 4. Harlow, though, might force the issue to slide up clear, and he does. Now Roy peeking back to the inside, but he'll tuck in. So now move Erb and Harlow up 1 spot each, and Roy down to 3rd. So Harlow's going to try to see if he can put the fight up for the race lead on Erb now instead of second, while Porter keeps trying to fight this 9 machine in hopes of taking a spot inside the top 5 away. You can see that's where the big gap has kind of formed up in this pack, if you will. You have about a couple of distinctions. You have that gap from Duran back to Stubblefield at about a second. You have that gap from Stempien back to Muscarella, which actually kind of closed over those last handful of laps. That sets at about 8 tenths of a second. And then a second behind Jason Anderson to Cedric Hunter. I want to so far through the first 30 completed laps of this race at the cross the start finish line, a green flag affair. And Banks is keeping Porter honest. Can't afford to make too dangerous of a move, and Roy is not quite done yet. He's still trying to mount some kind of fight for second, and David Duran has joined this fight proper. As down the back straightaway, you see that 22 machine get up right onto the 6. Trying to get him to close that fight up for the lead. As long as they fight in front of him, He can't fall too far back. But the fastest driver in this top 10, in this top 5, is that 98 machine of David Duran. If he can find a way to get past these cars, it'll be a huge opportunity for him. He was a 10th quicker that last lap. But now in the dirty air, now in this traffic, it's about how can you get the right momentum, get the right position to make a move. The 6 tried to think about it. He's going to tuck in line. Here comes Roy. He's going to give him another shove down the stretch. And not really looking to run high, neither is Harlow. He's committed to that bottom. I'm trying to make it work. That's the top 4. Have pulled away by almost 1.5 seconds. As you see further back, Porter has finally got past that 9 machine. And that'll be up to Brandon Banks, seeing if he can get by Stubblefield's 9 machine, as he might get to the inside, but not quite, off of turn 4. And there's Muscarella, who, after falling off earlier in the run, has kind of maintained steady in this top 10, and he's trying to get back past these 2 that he had been in front of at the start of this race. Trying to turn things around is the 48 of Muscarella. He has a run. He'll push this Droppin the Hammah teammate of Stempien to try and get a run on this 4 car. Just nothing doing. And you hear on board of Muscarella clutching it all the way to the corner. Maybe scrapes the outside wall a tad. But we know his strategy. He is definitely trying to save some fuel, as he'll once again try to help his teammate out who lost momentum, and he brings him back into that side draft. So there goes Stempien off into turn number 3, continuing to fight that 4 machine. As Banks now gets by Stubblefield, they remain side by side for 8th. See how close they get. Going into turn 1. As really close, got the 4 and the 48 off of turn 2. Brings Jason Anderson into this mix. As Muscarella gets by the 4 of Holdcroft for 9th. And they remain racing now for a spot inside the top 10, as Muscarella might not be done. They're working in tandem for sure. And there it is. Continue to push the clutch in. We saw a couple of drivers try to do that earlier in the run since this drop of this race. And over time, that can manifest itself into a handful of laps of fuel. As Banks now to the inside of Porter. That's for the 5th place spot. These 2, the top 2 in the point standings as it stands right now. And it's been that way really ever since the 2nd race. Banks, being the winner of Daytona, has been the points leader all season long. But Porter, since race 2, has moved himself up to 2nd in the standings. As Stephen Harlow has not quite quit up the fight, as Muscarella peeked up to the outside, possibly looking to go 3 wide, as Stubblefield's really dropped off here. As there goes by Stempien, Muscarella, and now Anderson getting by that 9 machine. Stubblefield running nearly 4 or 5 tenths of a second slower, as now Muscarella goes to the inside of Stempien for 7th. As the fight up top, up to the outside wall for turn 4 was Justin Erb. Harlow must have had a pretty big moment himself. Look at all that ground he's lost. Back into the clutches of Kevin Roy and David Durand. But if we are going to see some pit stops by drivers that know they can't go all the way, we could see it here soon, possibly the undercut if you even split it. It wouldn't surprise me to see most drivers try to go to the very end just to try and negate tire disadvantage later. But also the possibility of a yellow flag. You don't want to be stuck down pit road a lap down when the caution flag waves. So this track is so big that you'll pit, and yeah, sure, maybe you'll go a lap down, but it won't be by much if you do. It'll be somewhere within this top 5 of the leader. at least in that kind of area of the racetrack, if you're in this top 10. And with the tire advantage, could gain that time back and get back on the lead lap. But those first 4 laps could be very dangerous in regards to the ability of getting back on the lead lap before a yellow flag waves, as the 98 machine, David Duran, has gotten back into third. Spent a couple laps behind the 22 once he caught up to the race leaders. Now he'll take that spot away on the podium. And you look at the lap times that these leaders ran at the start of the run, and you compare them to what they're running now, and the fall off is not really there. That last lap, a 40.49 for David Duran, whose best lap in this race is a 39.94. Now the fastest lap in this race, I believe, is currently held by Timothy Stubblefield, who's actually been down pit road already. Just heading out the pit lane is the 9 machine, and that makes sense. He was definitely going to be on his way into the lane soon with how much he was falling off. His best lap was a 39.61. So you compare that to essentially what he was running, which was a 40.8. And it paints the picture. He dropped off by over a second, while most of the field is still within half a second, 0.6 of a second of what they had been doing. Harlow once again peaks to the bottom. Nothing quite there. He's been committed to using this lower lane on this 20, and he's had moments. Thought he might have another one there, but not quite enough to get to the inside. And it's another lap that he's behind, as Banks is slowly closing the gap up to the race leaders. They put up some good lap times, him and Porter together, over the last couple of laps. They're closing the gap to Kevin Roy, who's down to 4th, and on David Duran. So we'll see what this 5 can do. See right there, had to kind of burp the throttle while he was in the wake of the 22 machine. Kind of hurts any chance of a run that he could have down this front straightaway. So he's not really going to have a strong move to make down towards turn number 1. He'll go down to the bottom anyway. And he just might get clear. In fact, he does, yeah. So move Banks up to the 4th spot. He's been absolutely flying on this long run of the race. And up front, there he is. He's finally gotten to the inside, side by side for the top spot. Hanging on the quarter panel, side drafting. Here comes David Duran now. He's going to try to make a move to the inside. 3 wide for the race lead. Oh, and he gets blocked off to the apron by Harlow. What a move by the 6. He's going to slide up the racetrack. Herb's going to try to come back with it. Now he's to the inside. All this hurting their times as Banks is now caught up to the back bumper of the 98. As there's the 6 now with the momentum on the high side. Herb trying to fight back, but he's clear. New race leader here at Auto Club, Stephen Harlow. All the while, Brandon Banks is right up the alley of this 98 of David Duran, as Porter had his fair share of issues on the previous lap. Kevin Roy has dropped down to 6 now. He's got Steven Stempkin for company here shortly. As there's Banks to the inside of Duran. For that spot, there's going to be contact. But they remain good off of turn 4. And Herb hasn't let up. He'll go all the way to the outside. Harlow, you see, moves up. I haven't really seen him run up the racetrack too much this evening. Very much playing a defensive role here now that he's got the lead. And to give some credit to most of the field, we've gone 46 laps. We're nearing the end of that fuel window. I've still only seen Timothy Stubblefield make the trip down pit road. Nobody else appears to be biting. At least not right now. So this really starts to get interesting when you talk about trying to make this two-stop race. If they can get to lap 50, then it really makes it good. But it's a long way around this racetrack, 2 miles in length in total. Every drop matters, especially if you can extend one lap beyond your competition. As there's your 2 leaders. No bite down the pit lane this lap for either of them. Or any of the top 5 or 10 for that matter. But there's one that is going to make the trip down the pit lane. It is the 92 of Jason Anderson. The first one into the pit lane. We could see most of the leaders possibly file on soon. You'll see how quickly anybody else thinks about going into the pit lane. Could see possibly some more stoppers this time around. And it appears as though, yeah, the 6 is going to hit the brakes. He's getting ready to bring it down pit road. So is the entire top 5. Everybody here on lap 48. And that puts the lead at the hands of Steven Stempien and Alex Muscarella. Remember, those two on a different strategy. They were saving fuel that whole time. And you hear the silence with Muscarella. If they can go at least another lap or 2, it puts them in a good spot to only stop twice in this race. The leader of those drivers that stopped, at least for the time being, will be Timothy Stubblefield, given the early stop. But it is working out really good for these 2. Really 3 when you include Cedric Hunter, who will make the trip down pit lane earlier, though. There's Garrett Walden, Jesse Whittington, Charles Van Schaik. They continue to circulate around this racetrack. Richard Swavely's into the pit lane. And the first driver on after green flag pit stop says there's they go. Exiting the lane, it's Banks from Porter from Durand. Looks like slow stops for the 6 and the 20. There's Timothy Stubblefield, who stopped earlier. He's got 10 lap old tires at this point. Muscarella's gonna, or rather Stempien's gonna be here on lap number 50. Giving the lead back to the 48 machine. From Charles Van Schaik. The only 2 drivers yet to pit, as Garrett Walden, Jesse Whittington, Brad Fulham have all made it to pit road on lap 50. And we could expect to see this 48 machine in on this lap. He'd been one of those drivers saving the most. And for reference, the gap between Muscarella and Jaden Porter, who's moved past Banks for the net race lead, it's still a lap. They're behind the 48 out on the racetrack right now. You see, he's going to stay out another lap. This is going to make it work really nicely for Muscarella's chances of trying to win this race if we go green for a good portion. From now to the checkered, Stempien makes his way off the lane. He's going to be behind that group of cars, and you actually see them behind the race leader. There they are. Porter ahead of Banks from Durand, which will be the net race lead when it all cycles through. And Schaik made a trip down the pit lane on the last lap. So it all comes down to the 48, who I believe will make a tripping into the pit lane this time. And there he goes. What a strategy call here by this 48. He's going to pit at the end of lap 52. Makes his job a lot easier the rest of this race. He'll have better tires, but all his eggs are in the basket of this race goes green. I can make it on pitting just one more time. Everybody else is going to have to still stop twice, especially the 9 of Timothy Stubblefield, who stopped what is now 13 laps ago. So the 2 drivers that were fighting for the lead before the pit stops. Stephen Harlow, Justin Erb. Erb has really had some struggles back on these new tires. You see he's gotten passed by a handful of drivers. Some of them have pitted a few laps ago. Handing the race lead now officially to Jaden Porter and Brandon Banks. The top two in the point standings, and Kevin Roy, who's running in fourth in this little quartet of drivers that have settled at about 1.5 seconds ahead of Harlow and 3 ahead of Stempian. As there you see a bit of a run there to the inside by Duran. He's going to try not to waste as much time on this run. He was one of those fastest cars on the long run. And now he has the race leader in sight at the bolt-on of the new tires. So we'll see what he has for this 22. If he can slice up into third. And he will. He'll put it right in between Banks and Roy to cover that third place spot. Fantastic racing here from the Auto Club Speedway, about to complete lap number 54. We'll take a quick break and go side by side. You won't miss the action here on the KBueno Racing Network.
Welcome to the Thousand Islands Cruette in Clayton, New York. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come in for a tasting and our helpful and knowledgeable staff will help you find the perfect olive oils or vinegars to add that perfect touch to your next meal. We have monthly specials and sales, as well as new pairings and recipes, so there's always something new to try when you visit. The Thousand Islands Cruette on James Street in Clayton. And don't forget, hey, no touchy the tankies.
It's the thirstiest time of the year. Hey. I have just one query.
Want a Sprite cranberry?
The answer is clear. It's the thirstiest time of the year. Sprite, let's go.
Hey, Francisco, what's up?
Yo, what's up, Kenneth?
How's it going, man?
How are you?
Good. How you been? What you got in the bag, man?
I got a panini, I have a hoagie, I got it all through the Wall Rewards app.
You can order it all through the app?
You can order it all through the app.
I can order it all through the app. The world is my oyster! By placing your order on the Wawa app, you can pick up at any time with ultimate satisfaction. Gotta have a Wawa.
Hey, Francisco, what's up?
Yo, what's up, Kenneth?
How's it going, man?
How are you?
Good. How you been? What you got in the bag, man?
I got a panini, I have a hoagie, I got it all through the Wall Rewards app.
You can order it all through the app?
You can order it all through the app.
I can order it all through the app. The world is my oyster! By placing your order on the Wawa app, you can pick up at any time with ultimate satisfaction. Gotta have a Wawa.
Welcome back to the Auto Club Speedway, where the fight for the race lead has been fought and decided. The 98 of David Durant gets by both Banks and Porter to reclaim the top position of this race, as the 22 of Kevin Roy has also now found himself in third. There's Banks a little bit further back, and Stephen Harlow with the new tires has quickly driven his way back up into this. Steven Stempian has 2 lap better tires than everybody within this top 10 or so. finds himself now up to 6th. And the 48 of Alex Muscarella, who's did a good job saving fuel, is 11th. About 5 seconds behind the race leaders. He's running comparable lap times to the top spot runners. And may be in a good position to pit only one more time in this race. If we stay under the green flag, good run by Kevin Roy off of turn 4. Not much he can do with it. Now he's to the outside of Porter, who moved down to the inside to give him that spot. But no, he moves back in front of the 22. As Banks appears to put the move on the inside of Harlow. We're going to end up 3 wide here. They're Stemping on the bottom. Harlow with a good enough run on the outside. He'll take over the 4th spot in all of this. And there's Herb joining the fray, looking for a spot inside the top 5. This 6 car looked pretty quick on that long run, but struggled to get past both the 20 and the 22. And now with these new tires is really moving, trying to get back up into what was some pretty solid track position earlier on in the night. As Porter now, after relinquishing the lead, has to think about how he fights this 22 machine as 98 of Duran continues to pull away. What a run it's been for Kevin Roy. He sits below the playoff cut line right about now, I believe. And he is still looking for a really strong run. And tonight, it's been exactly that. It's just been really quick after starting on the pole. He's done a good job. And I do want to correct myself. He is on the positive side of the cut line. He's actually 6th in points. So he's actually done really good, consistency-wise, to end up there. He has a chance of possibly moving up to 3rd if he has a good enough run tonight. And a run like he's having right now in the 3rd place spot could be just enough for him, as he is fighting with the runner-up in the standings right now in Jaden Porter, who in his own right is seeing if he can take the points lead away from Banks. May need some outside assistance after the trouble he had on the racetrack last time at Texas. As you're riding on board with Roy, look at the speeds he reaches. Just reaches the 200-mile-an-hour mark in the double draft of your top 2 runners. And that's what I mean by saying that the draft here gets so powerful. Porter had a draft, but Roy was able to pull up closer and have essentially a draft off a driver drafting, which is a bigger hole being cut in the air. But there's Stephen Harlow, who doesn't need too big of a draft. He's using every inch of his race car. Now he's to the inside of Kevin Roy for that position. Looking to get back onto the podium. And Steven Stemping is not too far behind as well. Neither is Justin Herb. And Banks in all of this has fallen off to 7th. And you heard it there for a brief second now. He's trying to clinch some of that fuel, save some of the ability of tires or fuel saving. Maybe he's thinking about jumping ship onto Muscarella's strategy. It wouldn't take much. It wouldn't take much at all. The gap between Banks and Muscarella, that is right now, sits at approximately 5 seconds. As there's Muscarella, he's still got some right front damage on his car, but he's working through this traffic. And the good thing Muscarella has going for him is that he saved a lot of that fuel in the early portion of the run. But he is in traffic right now. As, to the inside. Tried to take it 3 wide at the same time Van Schaik tried to go to the inside of the 45 who put the block on. Now he'll drive it in and clear both of them. Remember, has slightly fresher tires than everybody he's around. But he's not exactly looking to be the fastest driver out there on the racetrack right now anyways. See, now he pulls down low, trying to bring Hunter back into that fight with Van Schaik, who gets clear anyway. But Muscarella's just trying to save some fuel, but not be in this traffic. If you get into this mess of cars, you put yourself in a spot where you can get involved in a crash. And with the good strategy he has going for him, I'm sure he doesn't want to put himself in harm's way. As now Harlow peeks to the inside of Porter for second. This 6 car really been putting a move on in this run ever since the green flag pit stop. Stempian has worked his way up into 4th. And now we're really starting to see a little bit more spread between your top couple runners. Harlow clears for the 2nd spot. Porter, though, with the crossover move, he's now back to the inside. Down the back straightaway. There's teammate Steven Stempian looking to help that 6 machine get them both going forwards. For the Droppin the Hammah Racing organization. There's Harlow, though, with the outside. Just gets clear of this 82. All this going on about 0.6 of a second behind the race leader of David Duran. So all that is going on here. The battle inside the top 10 for the last couple of positions is very much the same. And for Cedric Hunter, who's back in 13th, it's been a struggle. He's on a similar strategy to Muscarella. He pitted after the leaders, but a little bit before himself. But he's been back here in traffic, has not really made up too many positions on everybody else. Not something we're accustomed to seeing out of this 45 machine, the Canadian of Cedric Hunter. Here, how much out of the throttle they end up getting, even 20 laps into this fuel run. And remember, the driver who's in a similar strategy to this 48 but pitted 1 lap earlier is the 23 of Charles Van Schaik, who at the Kentucky Speedway put on a solid performance to come away with a P2 finish. And he's looking to try and build on that. Texas didn't exactly go entirely as planned. And here at Auto Club, on the outskirts of a top 10 position, he's got a really good strategy on his side. And he's essentially racing with the leader of that strategy right now in Alex Muscarella. See him get to the inside, try to drag him back. And they're both not clutching, at least not right now. They probably did a lot of their heavy lifting on that opening run, and now they're not exactly required to save that fuel. As they remain door to door for position, Stempian having to try and hold off the 20 of Herb fails as the 20 machine makes the move to the inside. But now Stempian with the crossover move, he gets back to the bottom now to try and re-challenge for 4th place on the racetrack. But Herb has that outside lane. He'll have that momentum. And slowly but surely for the lead, as a big moment for Duran off the corner, is going to invite Stephen Harlow to make a move into turn 1. Has to think about which way to go. Chooses low. He'll get clear and slide up the racetrack. Duran, though, going to try to turn back under him. He's there. They're side by side for position. Porter's there ready to make things happen. He'll go with the 6 down the back straightaway, who now has the favorable line into turn 3. Duran backs out of it. And off of turn 4, he is still there, trying to fight with every inch he's got, and hanging on for dear life with the side draft. Tough fight at the front of the field. Trying to do everything he can to maintain the top spot after that mistake in turn 4 2 laps ago. And Porter trying to figure out what he can do to try and take this lead back. Goes up to the 3rd lane, tags the wall in the process. And there's Duran. He's drifting up the racetrack. Had to get out of the throttle for a moment. That could allow Harlow to get clear down the front stretch. But you see Duran's not quite giving up. The blocking into turn 1. And Harlow's got the race lead. And look at the run Jaden Porter has. Ran the middle. Duran is going to lose that second place spot. Porter now has a little bit of momentum. Harlow kind of fade blocks him a little bit, but Porter will go back to the outside. Try and mount a charge similar to what he did to take second away. But not quite there. He does not quite get to the inside. And while all this is going on, Kevin Roy, our pole sitter, has dropped off a bit. He's down to 8th place now, just ahead of Jason Anderson. There's Warren Kyle Keith in 7th, just ahead, a name we haven't really talked about too much here tonight. There's Charles Van Schaik, who runs in 10th, and Alex Muscarella. You see a little bit of a sandwich of Richard Swavely between the 48 and the 23. Oh, and side by side for the lead. Porter to the outside. Harlow gets loose off of turn 4. Porter to the top spot. Duran trying to take second away again. The top 6 once again bunching up together as we approach almost 30 laps since the main green flag pit stops began. Meaning we're about 15 to 20 away from the next set. And this is where we could see variance in these strategies. Yes, once you start nearing the end of the race, oh, Harlow's going to get loose big time in front of Duran. Makes the correction. Urban to the wall. Here comes Stempian. He's going to try to get past all 3 of them. And he will. Big time loose one. We see Harlow not exactly appreciative of that hard racing, as they remain side by side, but now for 3rd. As let's see if we can get a replay of just exactly what went down as we were going into turn 3. The 6 drove it in very deep, and there's Duran trying to get back to the bottom, and you see a little bit of looseness out of the 6. That's some of that aero pack that we've talked about. You see kind of bented the front end of that 98, and it's really going to hurt some of Duran's straight line speed here. This is a very sensitive racetrack when it comes to aero. You see right there, he tries to let off, but at the same time it invites everybody into the fight, and they're not let go of each other. They're still arguing over some track position here now for 3rd, with Banks up to 5th past Herb. And this group of 6 about 3 seconds clear of Warren Kyle Keith, as previously mentioned, and what it's done is that half a second ahead of the 6, it's Steven Stempian, who's now 7/10 of a second behind your current race leader of Jaden Porter. Further back in the pack, there's Cedric Hunter, who's now gotten past Alex Muscarella, who I believe is back on the save front on this strategy. He's lost a good bit of ground to Charles Van Schaik, who's 3 seconds ahead of him. Here's the 23, who's definitely much closer to the front of the field, running better lap times than your race leaders individually. And he's still within reaching distance. I see Warren Kyle Keith goes to the very outside, trying to defend for 7th place. Nearly forces Kevin Roy into a battle with Jason Anderson. Using every inch of this Auto Club Speedway, Anderson has a bit of a moment on the bottom. Here comes Van Schaik. He'll take the 9th spot away. And here's Jesse Whittington, Garrett Walden, who are not too far apart on strategy calls like the 23 and the 48, but they've certainly lost a bit more time compared to the other two. But it might not even be about playing for the win. At this point, running where they are in 14th and 15th, it could be about gaining a top 5 out of this. And you see them clutching, pushing that clutch in, trying to save some fuel, having the engine not turning any revolutions. It's certainly going to help out. And looks like there was trouble for Timothy Stubblefield at one point in this race. An issue for the 9 machine. He is 24 laps down, and same could be said for the 19 of Brad Fulham. He's 4 down. So trouble for those two has led to their retirement from this race, leaving us with 20 active runners as it stands. The first of which is Jaden Porter, and Stampion's on a good lap now. Harlow's crept back into 3rd. He's pulled away from the 98. He's closing in on his teammate, and they're pushing each other together down these straightaways in hopes of catching back up for the race lead. From over 190 plus miles an hour, slowing it way down. And on this end of the racetrack, nearly 200 working together trying to close the gap, and they are. It was about a 10th on that last lap as they continue to make it work here in the late goings of this second run. Here's the 23, Charles Van Schaik. He's moved this way now up to 7th. He's gotten past that little group of cars, trying to remain clear and not have to fight them. But Warren Kyle Keith is, he sees a race car, he's going to fight it. You can be sure about that. It's about 3.5 seconds off that lead group that extends back to Brandon Banks. He gets clear safely and sound. And you see this lead group is kind of split into 2. You have the first 3 generally, which is Porter and the 2 Droppin the Hammah teammates. Then you have Durand Erb with Banks almost a second behind that lead trio, to which by the sound of it Banks is saving. You could hear it there on that onboard. We heard it earlier, but he's definitely shifted strategies now. Maybe everybody else is thinking that there is going to be a caution at some point. Does not sound like this 28 or 82 is in the business of saving fuel at this point in the race. And with 63 laps to go here across the start finish line, he is starting his 40th lap of the stint, rather 39th. As Stempion is not doing this very much the same thing either. Possibly all expecting that this race will eventually see its first yellow flag and throw all these strategies out the window. But if you are someone like Banks, who has the points lead and a race win already, why not try something like that? Especially with everybody being as far out as they are, as Erb now takes 4th spot away from Durand. It could be worth it. Muscarella in the same time has moved up to 11th. He's gotten past a couple of these cars that got around him, very much similar to what we saw at the end of that first run. But he's gonna get into the outside wall off of turn 2. And he's been losing ground. Pretty substantial ground. You see how clear of a track he has ahead? That group in front of him is the group that's being led by the 23 of Charles Van Schaik. So a pretty big gap exists between him and the drivers he's battling, not to mention the damage to the right front of his race car after grabbing the outside wall a good number of times. As we're very much nearing this pit stop sequence sooner rather than later. And the progress has kind of stumped on these two. They were gaining time on Porter, now they're losing time running behind this 82. And if for Porter, him being the race leader that is, if he is able to kind of pull away a little bit from the drivers behind, that could help his pit strategy. It's going to be asking a lot to wait a whole lap and then pitting, but we also saw that him and Banks are some of those better drivers at getting in and out of the lane compared to some of the competition. And just being out of draft could play a huge role as into the outside wall goes Harlow. Not sure if he was trying to get to the outside of Stempien for the corner and he just tagged it on the straightaway. But he got into it nonetheless, but he remains alright. As you see the gap that has befallen back to Duran now. And Banks. I believe these two possibly switched strategies. Duran hasn't. He's still downshifting. Banks remains in 5th with clutching. And a really good run here down the back straightaway for Stempien. You see Porter kind of moved out of line trying to take some draft away. That was 2/10 that the 88 machine gained. Gap sits at 3/10 here off of turn number 4. With the help from his teammate and the draft down the front straightaway, it is going to decrease down to nearly 2/10. See the send to the inside by the 88. Not quite enough to get to the inside of Porter. But Justin Erb has rejoined this fight. He's very much on the back bumper of Stephen Harlow, trying to battle for that position. As the top 4, like it was out of the pit lane, have pulled away towards the end of this run. With 57 laps to go. And Jaden Porter at the cross of the start finish line will begin his 46th lap. Meaning he'll probably be in the pit lane within the next 3 or so. As there's Erb to the outside now of Harlow going into turn 1. Stempien 44 laps ago has one of the better tires and fuel situations of any one of these 4. But given how early he pit, it's going to be very questionable if he can reach that magic number to get to the end. Oh, and there's Harlow who got to his inside, nearly made contact. Now here's Erb with the run on the outside. He'll move up to 3rd safely. Maybe even have a chance at Stempien for 2nd. And the gaps have really opened up. Behind Brandon Banks sits this 23 of Charles Van Schaik. In 8th is the 48 of Alex Muscarella. Those two are definitely aiming to pit just this one last time in this race. And may have the best position to do so. The thing is, they've lost a lot of time to the leaders. And there's Porter pitting here with 55 to go. And so is Durand. Those two cannot make it to the checkered flag pitting here now with 54 to go. Question is, what does that mean for the rest of this top 4? The 23 and 48 are the next best runners in regards to their track position And with their fuel situation, they're now running 5th and 6th. Stempien again pitted 2 laps later compared to Erb, Harlow, and Banks. See the gap back to Banks. Looks like Erb and Harlow will pit this lap. And Banks, with this switch to of this strategy, maybe trying to creep it close enough to where he can maybe extend as far as the 23 and 48 have done so. He's got about 3.5 seconds advantage to Charles Van Schaik. There's Porter exiting the pit lane. See the gap he put on Durand in the process. As Steven Stempien goes down the backstretch into turn 3. And no move to the pit lane. Went 48 laps rather, on his first stint. And he's starting his 48th lap now. With 52 to go. Remember, 51 laps is how far the 48 went. It was one of those that ran it longest on that first run with pretty maximum saving efforts, to say the least. If this 88 can go an additional lap, makes it a lot easier for him to even try that strategy. But given that entry, he's definitely going to bring it down the pit lane, and he will. So a trip down the pit lane for him and Banks. Van Schaik will stay out for another lap. Who now takes over the race lead with 51 laps to go. There's Muscarella, who moves into second, 6 seconds now behind the 23 of Van Schaik. You see these drivers behind, they probably have been using that 48 as a tow. They haven't really made any moves to get around Muscarella as soon as he got to the lead of this group. They pitted about a lap or so earlier than Muscarella. Hunter on this instance and Swavely, 50 laps on their stints. Trying to make this work. And by crossing the start finish line by not pitting, we've reached that magic number. Anybody who can pit from here to the end of this race is most certainly a good to go on fuel. Six seconds will separate what is now the battle for second on the racetrack between Jesse Whittington and Alex Muscarella. There's Cedric Hunter now also trying to take that spot away from the 48. Van Schaik will stay out for yet another lap. 49 laps to go. He's not looking to save any fuel in that final run. And for reference sakes, as Hunter will make a trip down the pit lane here from 5th. Here's the mess of cars that was the fight for the race lead. Jaden Porter, Justin Erb, Stephen Harlow, Steven Stempien, and now Warren Kyle Keefe, who pitted a few laps before, now has 9-lap old tires compared to most of these leaders, which have about 3 or 4 on them. And Stempien with the freshest tires of them all, looking to try and take advantage of that now. Get the track position while he can. But it continues to be Charles Van Schaik, who now pits here, approaching 48 laps to go. Jesse Whittington will be one to stay out, as everybody else will make a trip down pit lane. The 94 machine of Jesse Whittington stays out. He's the last driver to not make a pit stop. The last handful that have been down pit road are guaranteed to the end. Maybe have to do some minor saving, but they definitely don't have to bring it down the lane again if we continue to stay under the green flag conditions. Stopping here on 48, approaching 47 laps remaining. Minimal saving efforts will be seen out of this 94, whilst all your leaders, once it cycles through, will very likely be in a situation where they're looking to save some fuel. Justin Erb got by Porter, and he is kind of driven away. Stempien and Warren Kyle Keith battling for that position, as Jaden Porter, Stephen Harlow have lost ground. And you can see they might be realizing this a little bit too late, that the strategy call was to make that extra pit stop. And as it turns out, that most of these guys will need assistance of the yellow flag. There's the left sides going up on Whittington as the leaders go by. The jacks drop, and he'll be underway. As there's Charles Van Schaik, the leader of this strategy, of those that can, without a doubt, make it to the checkered flag, who runs in 10th, 7.5 seconds off the race leaders, and he has about 8 or so on average laps better tires than those leaders. So he can cut some time into it if he can, and even gain a few more spots outright, especially when you look at drivers who maybe switch strategies like Banks and Duran, who might back the pace down and save some fuel. He's only about 2 seconds off that group. There's Banks right there, who's been attached to the lead group for most of the day. Kevin Roy, who pitted 10 laps ago, he can't make it to the end. It is really going to spice things up as Warren Kyle Keith is looking to make some spices of his own. Approaching 45 to go. He's looking to at least get some laps led here in this race. Capture a few bonus points that could help his regular season standings position. Remember, these two were running 1-2 last week at Texas, when the 20 made a mistake out in front, gave a little bit of damage to the 24 in the process, and it hurt their race from there on out. But Keith slides up in front of Herb, nearly making contact, and now they remain door to door to the inside of turn 3, but Warren is going to go down to the very inside in hopes of clearing for the top spot, and he's got it with a bit of a wiggle, but has the position. Looking to at least put a bit of a gap between himself and the competition. As you see further back, Jason Anderson, who pitted 17 laps ago, now gets by that 28 or 82 of Jaden Porter. 4 seconds behind this, there's David Durand and Charles Van Schaik, who's made a couple of passes. Remember, this 23 saved fuel in the earlier runs, and he has fresher tires than the entire lead group. He's about 5.5 seconds off the race leader, and he can make it to the end. No, the only driver up there that maybe could try to save to the end is this 88 of Steven Stempian. But is he trying to save to the end? Let's take a listen. A resent. Wow. He is saving. He pitted with 51 laps to go, so it's not going to be difficult. The problem he has, that he's going to face anyways, is that he's going to be on older tires trying to save fuel, compared to the 23, who will have fresher tires and maybe not even need to save, based on how far he was able to take it on that last run. That'll make the closing stages of this race very interesting, as we approach 41 laps to go at the cross to the start finish line. We'll take another break and go side by side, but we'll be back to the checkered flag here on the KBueno Racing Network.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
It's good.
It's good, man. How'd you get it?
I got it all through the Walmart Rewards app.
All through the app?
All through the app.
All through the app. The world is my oyster. On the Wawa app, you can get all of your favorites and pick up at any time. Gotta have a Wawa.
Welcome to the Thousand Islands Cruette in Clayton, New York. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come in for a tasting, and our helpful and knowledgeable staff will help you find the perfect olive oils or vinegars to add that perfect touch to your next meal. We have monthly specials and sales, as well as new pairings and recipes, so there's always something new to try when you visit. The Thousand Islands Cruette on James Street in Clayton. And don't forget, no touchy the tankies.
It's the thirstiest time of the year. I have just one query.
Want a Sprite cranberry?
The answer is clear. It's the thirstiest time of the year. Sprite, let's go.
Hey, Francisco, what's up?
Yo, what's up, Kenneth?
How's it going, man?
How are you?
Good. How you been? What you got in the bag, man?
I got a panini. I have a hoagie. I got it all through the Walmart Rewards app.
You can order it all through the app?
You can order it all through the app.
I can order it all through the app. The world is my oyster. By placing your order on the Wawa app, you can pick up at any time with ultimate satisfaction. Gotta have a Wawa.
Welcome back to the Auto Club Speedway. 36 laps to go here from the 2-mile racetrack in California, and still at the front of the field is Warren Kyle Keith. Justin Erb has made a couple of attempts to see if he can make a move for the top spot. He takes another one here in turns 3 and 4. Steven Stempien in the back trying to enjoy but also get into this fight, as Jason Anderson has a bit of a moment there. He made a trip down pit road a few laps ago, realized he couldn't get to the checkered flag. He's a lap down in this fight, but he's very much in the mix between what is top 5 running cars. Running in 6th is this 23 of Charles Van Schaik. He's good to go to the end of this race on fuel, and he's been chipping away at the race leaders, slowly but surely. He's got clean track, no cars to draft off of, so that might hurt him a little bit, but he's definitely hoping that at this point, with 34 to go across the start finish line, that this is a flag-to-flag affair. And I can't say that I recall seeing a flag-to-flag affair outside of road courses. Certainly not this season. But last season with the stages, we didn't see that. The last time the KBueno network itself had a flag-to-flag affair on an oval could very well potentially be Pocono of season number 6 in the 4-wide racing TJ's team series, and season number 6 with the O'Reilly Auto Parts series cars. That was back in 2022, 2023, that season. As now to the outside goes Justin Erb, makes the move around Warren Kyle Keith to take back the top spot. He's hoping, much like everybody else in this top 5, that a yellow flag can wave give them an opportunity to keep fighting. See, Keith thought for a moment he'd get to the inside, but he'll have to tuck in for second. Here's Stempien running third. Appears to have given up on pushing that clutch in to save fuel. Probably not enough to save, or has saved enough. He is running third, has draft. That's really going to help his ability. Might not exactly help Van Schaik, but we know that him pitting later completely is going to help him pretty much in that whole situation. And you can see him just towards the back end of that shot right there, that black car a little bit further back, just ahead of Kevin Roy. Trying to see if he can roll the dice and wind himself up in a good position to take his first career victory in this series, which still lays 31 laps. And 31 laps is a long time. They're lapping at about 40 seconds around this racetrack. You do the math, give or take 40 seconds across these 31 laps, you're looking at somewhere in the vicinity of about just over 20 minutes around this 2-mile racetrack. So still a long ways to go, where anything can happen. And it could be commentator's jinx, but Barney the flagman has yet to have been exercised since the drop of the green flag. He's probably hoping that the next flag he waves is a white and then a checkered. And I bet Van Schaik is hoping for the same thing too. Though the last couple laps he's lost a little bit of pace. Here's the onboard look with the 23. And again, this is probably where having no draft is hurting him. He's not able to outright gain the lap times he needs, like those leaders are doing all together. He's doing good for running by himself, but that's just it. He's by himself. So as much as he would love to keep closing the gap, there's just nothing he can do. In case the yellow were to come out to have some sense of track position, but also if any one of those top 5 save enough fuel to get to the end. Harlow and Porter got passed early on in the run. They've been hanging back here in 4th and 5th on the back end of this train of cars. You see Porter lift earlier and Harlow on the clutch, trying to save some of that fuel. If you save early enough in the run, it can definitely put you in a position to make up that disadvantage on the backside of the run. As fight for second goes on, Warren, Kyle Keith, and Steven Stempien nearly making contact. And there's Jason Anderson on the fresher tires. A little bit of a crossover there in the wake. Keith has to lift off a little bit. And he's going to lose a fair bit of time here to Stempien as Anderson was looking to get past, trying to unlap himself in this race, which not too far ahead of this fight lays the 32 of Richard Swavely, who is the last car on the lead lap, and he himself is saving a little bit of fuel in the process. And just behind Swavely and in front of the race leaders is the 28 of Casey Knighton, the Mobile 1 Ford Mustang. There's the leaders further back. And it's a waiting game at this point, as you see just how spread out the leaders have gotten on their own little group and the rest of the field as well. Everybody's really spread out. The last 2 laps, this 23, I've looked a lot cleaner. You see he's actually pulled away from Kevin Roy, who sits at about a second behind. And that could be due to the fact that Harlow and Harlow are saving a little bit more fuel. Harlow's dropped off to a second behind Warren Kyle Keith. And actually, that's Warren Kyle Keith making a trip down the pit lane. So, knows he can't make it to the end. He had gone 33 laps on his stint, wasn't able to do any more. And he surrenders a spot inside the top 5. And we'll see what that means for everybody else, especially those up here in the lead. You wouldn't want to lose time on new tires. If you're Steven Stempien, you're saving fuel to try and get to the end. If you're the likes of Jaden Porter and Stephen Harlow, do you pit? Is a great question to try and cover all 4 and Kyle Keith. You're in a position where you probably aren't going to make it anyways. So I'm wondering what this could mean. With now 24 laps left in this race, and Harlow's definitely pushing in that clutch. As there's Keith, he's going to exit just behind these two with fresher tires. He's going to be good to go the distance. As Van Schaik is closing in for what could be possibly a podium position. And Porter's lifting, but he's not really pushing that clutch in. And I think, probably like everybody else, perhaps either expecting or expected yellow flags to attribute into this race's outcome. But so far through the 127 laps completed, just has not been the case. And though Justin Erb and Steven Stempien are running the fastest laps of anybody in this top 10, Van Schaik is probably 3rd fastest right now. And I'm sure he doesn't mind that. Has enough fuel to get to the end. If Stempien's not really looking to save fuel, and he runs himself out before the checkered flag, the seas will part for him to be able to win this race. But right now, with 22 to go, this is the fight. Justin Erb, Steven Stempien. They have 4 seconds on Harlow and Porter, who have dropped back trying to save some of that fuel. Possibly also realizing that that's Van Schaik that's good to the end, but that's 6 laps of a difference between the 23 and 82, and 5 between himself and Harlow. So if that's the game he's playing, it's going to be a difficult one to recover from, because they probably still have to back the pace down, something the 23 does not have to do. And these two have switched the game on. They've really started pushing the deal, so I fully expect these two either believe a yellow will come out that could save their race, or a trip down the pit lane. But the question is, if you do, when? You don't want to get caught out by the yellow flag, but you also want to at least give yourself a chance to make up some of these positions, like we saw at Iowa in the late going. Now, approaching 20 laps to go. This will be the start of the 33rd lap for Erb, and the 32nd, or 31st, for Steven Stempien. And there's Stempien now to the inside for the top spot as it stands right now. Unable to do anything there as Van Schaik is caught up now to Porter and Harlow. He's peeking to the bottom of the 82 machine. Expect him to get right around these two as they try to save fuel to reach the scheduled distance of the night's race. See, now goes to the inside of Porter. And into turn 1, that's 4th for Charles Van Schaik. Looking at 3rd on the exit of 2. Could definitely look to aim to get it into turn 3 with that 6 car. Pushing that clutch in. Or we'll see if Harlow fights back. He knows that this is the essential fight for the race win, but probably doesn't have as many tools in the toolbox to work with now that he's right behind him. You see him still clutching it, but a little bit later on that clutch button compared to what he had been doing earlier. But just the grip of the tires and the momentum of the grip he was able to save while not pushing it extravagantly. Gets him to the inside. Lap car Richard Swavely will play a factor. He's running right in front of that 23. It's going to hurt Van Schaik's effort of getting past, but looks like Harlow had a bit of a moment there off of turn 4. Now neither of them get past in the turn 1. You can see the damage to the front end of Swavely, who now goes to the middle of the racetrack. That's right in front of the 6. Van Schaik gets clear for 3rd. As now Swavely drifts up the track. And all while this is going on, there's Cedric Hunter a little bit further back. He's closing in on Jaden Porter as well. Remember, Hunter also saved some fuel towards the end of that last run, possibly getting himself into a similar strategy as Van Schaik. Van Schaik pitted 1 lap later than Cedric Hunter. And there's Jesse Whittington, who went the longest on that last cycle. He's not too far behind any of those drivers. It could still be wide open between those 3. As Roy continues to deplete some more positions. He's not going to be able to make it to the end. He's on his 40th lap right now. And the fight at the front of the field for what is currently P1 on the racetrack continues to be between Justin Erb and Steven Stempien. And what a battle this could be. Could have been for the race win. As Stempien peaks to the bottom, tries to use that momentum to get there. He's now side by side for the top spot going down the backstretch. But with the outside, just look how much more speed Erb is able to carry. Stempien's not going to give it up, and with Jason Anderson there, he could play a role in how the positions turn out to be. And don't look now, but Cedric Hunter is making moves as Stempien clears in the middle of turn 1 on Erb. He'll move up and take the top spot away. But Cedric Hunter got past Jaden Porter, and now he's within a second of Charles Van Schaik. And there's not too far behind the 94 of Jesse Whittington. Alex Muscarella lost a lot of time between mistakes and trying to save the fuel that he could have been up in this fight. But instead, it's one that turns to a battle of 3. As Justin Erb makes a trip down the pit lane after getting past for the top spot, he's now no longer confident to get to the end. That's leaving Steven Stempien ahead of Charles Van Schaik. And he got passed by a lap car of Jason Anderson. Now does Stempien try to wait it out to the checkered flag in hopes of a yellow flag saving his cause? Or does he have the fuel to get to the end? But he was really pushing it. The good thing he has going for him is that car in front of him, Jason. Pitted for fresher tires, has a little bit of a faster car right now than Stempien. But it gives him a good opportunity to save some fuel and not lose nearly as much time. But with the 23 now in second, and essentially with no cars really battling one another, it's really going to help his case to try and close that gap down. And he's going to have to try to do that because Cedric Hunter, like I mentioned, going pretty fast around this racetrack and on his own right, on a very similar strategy, possibly being good to the end. He's worked his way up to 3rd as there's Harlow nearly making contact with Porter. That's for 4th now as Porter got right up to the back bumper of this 6. And less than a second behind is the 94 of Jesse Whittington. There's Brandon Banks. There's also still saving fuel, having pitted 40 laps to go, for Porter and Harlow, who now go side by side for position. It's 43 for Porter, 42 for Harlow. These two really trying to extend it as much as they possibly can, but it's just very difficult for me to see how they can get to the checkered flag here. And at the front, it's Steven Stempian, who takes 10 laps to go from Auto Club, unconfirmed if he can get to the checkered flag on fuel. If he can, it'll be extremely tight. As Cedric Hunter's there, he is right up the back bumper of the 23 of Charles Van Schaik, and these two can get to the end of this race on fuel. So this 23, who has only one lap fresher tires than Hunter, got caught by Hunter, who lost a lot of ground, and Hunter saving his tires excellently while carving through the field. Now trying to see if he can put the fight up to the 23 for what could be a battle for the race win. Remember, that number, 23, is the number that won the championship last season in Season 1, teammate to Van Schaik. You see him peeking now to the inside, but not quite able to fully get there. And Porter has either saved the fuel he's needed or has just given up. And I think it could be the latter of that. He's gotten past the 6 and now he's trying to drive up to those two in front. 46 laps into his stint is that 82 machine, and I think he's just hoping that a yellow flag can come out, possibly spare him this finish. But that's what a lot of the field appears to have been hoping for in the second half of this race. Just did not capture what it could have been like, what Alex Mascarello, what Van Schaik saw since the drop of the green flag, which was opportunity to do 2 stops in this race. No yellow flags. You're the first 144. Has presented this opportunity to these drivers, and the biggest question mark still remains on your race leader, Steven Stempian. Does he have the fuel to go the distance? It'll be 6 laps to go here at the line, and there's the gap between first and second. Sits at about 5 seconds now. And Stempian trying to do everything he can to fuel saving wise now. He's definitely backed it down the last handful of laps a little bit. And you go right there. Pushes the clutch in. Stays in 5th gear. Has 5 seconds to play with. Doesn't need to win by that margin. But that's the time he has available here now with 5 to go, to try and give himself as much fuel as possible to stay in this position at the checkered flag. And it's important to remember, he's on his 46th lap of the run right now. The furthest we've seen really anybody go was about 51 laps, and that's how much he'd have to run to the end, and he didn't really save a whole lot for a good portion of that run while battling with Herb, who now goes to his inside as the lap machine. Van Schaik now sits 4.5 seconds back. He has Cedric Hunter to worry about, as they'll go side by side now off of turn 4. A little bit of contact between those two. Jaden Porter's going to go through the middle. Yeah, it's right up in front of Schaik. But Cedric Hunter clears for the position as nearly more contact is made. So through this bit of chaos, there's Porter now. Gonna pit here with 4 laps to go. on his 50th lap of the stint. And that might not be good news to everybody. Stephen Harlow now starts his 50th lap. And that puts Steven Stempien on the magic number of possibly running out of fuel on the final lap with 5 seconds back to Cedric Hunter. We saw Harlow play a little bit more aggressive fuel saving than Porter. And he's still doing so. But he stays out yet another lap. He'll take it to 2 laps to go. At this point, possibly trying to get to the end of this race. And there's Steven Stempien, who still sits at about 4.5 seconds. Back to Cedric Hunter as Porter exits the pit lane after a quick stop for some fuel. Approaching 3 and 4. He's got a few lap cars ahead that he's been able to use to try and save any bit of fuel that he can. But the question is, will it be enough on this final lap of the race? Stephen Harlow's really backed it down to save some more fuel. To try and make sure he has enough through this final lap. Can Stempien do the same? It sits currently at about 4 seconds, 4.5 seconds between Steven Stempien and Cedric Hunter. But he goes into 3 and 4 still under power. And Steven Stempien, after battling at the front of the field, saves enough fuel through the final stretches of the race, and he'll take the checkered flag for win number 2 at Auto Club. Cedric Hunter, Charles Van Schaik round out their podium positions. Jesse Whittington climbs up to 4th with Brandon Banks taking 5th at the end of that. Stephen Harlow somehow after 52 laps, and he's out of fuel there on the inside. After running 52 laps on that final stint, he gets to the end. And David Durand went 53 laps to cap off a top 10 finish. But there's your race winner. For the second time this season, after capturing the win at the Echo Park Speedway a few weeks ago, getting the congratulatory taps from his competitors on a fantastic final run here from Auto Club. We'll see if he has enough fuel for a burnout. Also, come to the front straightaway. I don't think so. It appears he'll go straight to victory lane, probably just has enough fuel to get there. And he'll park it in Paul's setup shop victory lane. Unbelievable job by Steven Stempien to save the fuel there at the end, and he'll come across for a second win of the season. Let's go through our unofficial race results here from the Auto Club Speedway, where Steven Stempien's able to take yet another race win on this young season. He'll tie Cedric Hunter for most wins on the campaign so far. Hunter 1 spot short of a 3rd win and back-to-back efforts. Charles Van Schaik with another podium effort. He'll come away 3rd, with Jesse Whittington able to finish at the career best 4th spot. Brandon Banks, another top 5 effort to extend that points lead, with Stephen Harlow in 6th. Garrett Walden will finish in 7th. Alex Mascarello comes home in 8th. Daniel Holdcroft will finish 9th. David Duran rounds out the top 10, going 53 laps on that final stint. Kip Easley in 11th. Justin Erb in the 12th spot. Rounding out our lead lap finishers is Jason Anderson in the 13th spot. Jaden Porter had to pit with 4 laps to go, finishes 14th. Warren Kyle Keefe in 15th. Kevin Roy, the pole sitter, finishes down in 16th. Richard Swavely in 17th. 18th goes to Christian McCrelly, with the 19th spot going to Casey Knighton, and Alex Huffman had a bit of an issue on the last set of pit stops, finishes in 20th, with our earlier 2 retirements going to the 21st place Brad Fulham, and 22nd going to Timothy Stubblefield. Let's see if we can go and talk to our race winner. Looking to see if we have anybody on the voice chats right now, and appears like we do have him, so we'll drag him in here into the booth to talk with our now two-time race winner this season, Steven. Victory lane for the second time this season, and it was not easy. You had to battle multiple drivers, and then you had to battle the fuel. Take us through it.
I was pretty good race, you know. I'm happy with the win tonight. You know, that first run, I kind of was doing some different things, and I think that first run helped me save the fuel to get to the win tonight because I sputtered into my into the pits on that first run. I stretched it all the way until there was nothing on it. So that really was the end result for the win tonight. Was that first fuel run, and you know, just managing my stuff, taking it easy, and you know, I know I started back in the field, didn't have a good qualifying effort, but came back and you know, just managed my stuff and worked my way through the field.
It was a really strong effort, Steven, and we saw several different drivers attempt the strategies. At what point did you know that your strategy was going to be the one to work, given the different ones up and down the running order?
That last pit stop. Once I came out of that last pit stop, I know I was pretty close, so I was kind of coasting when Warren and Justin got in front of me. I knew I just needed to save a few laps. I was clutching it early on in that run, just taking care of my stuff. So I knew if I was able to save a little bit, my tires were going to be good, and I could make a pass if I had to. But yeah, it was after that pit stop. You know, obviously the first one helped sputtering into. I think I went 51 laps or whatever, so that helped. It gave me a little bit of knowledge there, and you know, I'm glad this thing stayed green to get the win.
Yeah, this race went green the whole way, and I gotta ask you because you know the record books more than I do. Did the old Sunoco series have flag to flag oval races at any point?
I don't think so. I don't think we ever did.
So this means that now you're the first winner to ever get a flag to flag. This is the first ever flag to flag race, and you're the winner of that race in the entire history of this series. How does that feel?
Pretty good, pretty good. You know, I don't know about the stats before I joined Sunoco. I think I came on season 3, 4. So, but I'm sure Warren will fact check us and tell us if we're wrong or not. But does it change the record book for victory lane celebration tonight? That's for sure.
Another win for you. Number 2 on the season, heading into the All-Star break that we'll be having here on the channel next time out, Steven. Anybody want to give a shout out to that helps makes this happen for you and the whole 88 team?
Obviously, you guys for everything you do for the league, putting on the show. The whole admin crew here. You know, they've done a fantastic job helping me out and really taking the reins and running with it. So can't thank them enough. And obviously the boys at DTH. You know, it's good to have a solid foundation with a good team. With Alex, Steve-O, you know, Cedric's been jumping in here and there, and then Jason. No Rogers tonight, no Ross, but hopefully we'll see them for the All-Star race. And you know, we got the surprise with the 10% more horsepower at the All-Star race. We'll see how that goes. Looking forward to that.
That's going to be one of the topics of conversations when we get there next time out. But congratulations on your second win of the season, Steven. We hope to see you out there and have some fun.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Have a good week.
That's Steven Sempion, race winner for the second time this season here from the Auto Club Speedway. First one coming from the Echo Park racetrack. So two different styles of racing, two different types of victories. So he'll appreciate that one very, very much. We'll drop down to the next driver in our podium results, which is going to be last week's race winner, Cedric Hunter, who now joins us in the booth. And Cedric, we saw different strategies, and I'm not quite sure when the whole field started picking up on the fact that it had to be that two-stop strategy. When did you pick up on it, and how did you make it work?
Yeah, I picked up on it a little too late there. I figured that after the first or during the first run, kind of like near the end of it, that it was like, all right, like we're for sure it's gonna be a two stop. Like we have to make it to 50, and then I with like 10 laps, like around lap 40, I looked down at my fuel estimated amount of laps, and it said like 10 and a half, and I felt pretty good about that, especially later into the run. And then I decided to switch from running the bottom exclusively to, like, I started running the middle and the top because it was faster, and I burnt off the amount of fuel without realizing. So I had to kind of short put by a lap there, which put me behind. I think if I just stuck to what I was doing, I would have been in a more favorable position, and, like, obviously gone the extra lap. I wouldn't have had to save so much. I was clutching almost, well, for a good portion of that second run, and by that time, like, there were so many guys in the field that were going all out, and I just didn't really have anybody to draft on. Like, I think that that's inevitably kind of what won Stemp the race. Great win to him. Obviously, he played the strategy perfectly, but having just the drafting help, man, is huge, and we didn't have that tonight. I think I dug myself a little bit too much of a hole after the first run.
And we saw drivers up and down the running order struggling to figure out exactly which strategy to be. For Stempian, he was able to perfectly balance the speed and the fuel. You came up second best. It looks like there was drivers that didn't even make it to the checkered flag. Just kind of explain your fuel saving tactics. I know some of our viewers maybe not understanding exactly fully how you're able to, so at least for them, kind of explain what your tactics were to try and conserve that fuel.
Yeah, I mean, I love running the bottom, like really shallow entries and stuff like that. So that definitely helps. Just trying to shorten the track up a little bit by running the bottom, and a lot of guys are running the middle. So obviously you're gonna burn off more fuel doing that. And then the second run, when I had to like save a lot of fuel, it was just lifting really early and then clutching at some points to just kind of let the car coast into the corners even more, and that's what we had to do. And then luckily I'd saved enough for the last run. I didn't have to, as long as I never got off the bottom line, and that's kind of what we ended up doing. And we ran out, I think, coming out of turn 2 on the cool down lap. So we saved pretty much just enough. Man, that last run after I passed Charles, which he gave me a run for my money there. But I was crossing my fingers, man, that Stemp, because he was pushing. Stemp was obviously pushing really hard for the second 2/3 of that race, and I was really hoping he was going to run out of fuel, but he obviously just made it.
And after capping off what has been a really good opening portion to the season with our All-Star break next week, Cedric, anybody you want to give a shout out to that helps makes this happen for you and the whole 45 team on this podium effort?
Yeah, absolutely, man. My crew chief spotter, Zachary Hall, comes out pretty much on a weekly basis at this point. Comes and helps me out, gives me kind of tidbits of what people are doing, and that's a huge help to have that extra set of eyes up in the booth. And shout out to the admins in this league, man. The all the drivers that come out. It's a great league. Like, to go 150 laps green is great. You love to see it. Shout out to you and to Bueno as well when he's here. So, that's pretty much it, man. Shout out to all the fans tuning. Hope you guys love the broadcast. I can't wait to go back and rewatch it, man. I'm sure you did a great job, Francisco, and we're really looking forward to it.
Appreciate the sentiments there, Cedric. Enjoy your podium finish here tonight from the Outer Clip Speedway. Hope to see you out there for All-Star festivities next time out.
Absolutely, man. Have a good night.
Cedric Hunter, podium finish here tonight from the Outer Clip Speedway. Another one to rack up to what has been a great start on the season, as we'll move and talk to our third place finisher tonight, Charles Van Schaik. And Charles, what a run it was for you this evening. You put yourself in a really good opportunity to try to take advantage of the strategies, and you wound up third when it was all said and done. Was there anything more that you felt like you needed to try and come away with that race win?
Uh, Draft and help, that would be one. I mean, I think I ran 40 of the last 50 laps almost by myself. And pushing it a little harder. I mean, I had 3 laps left of gas. I think I just conserved a little too much. Then I wasn't watching my relative, and next thing you know, Cedric was under me. So if I would have noticed he was coming, I would have pushed it. Yeah, just kind of lackadaisical there. Like I said, because I was running by myself. He wasn't on my relative. And then once I saw he was, Steven was, 5 seconds ahead with a 7, 8 laps left. I just kind of backed off a little bit because he was either going to run out of gas or I wasn't going to catch him. So I didn't want to put myself in a bad position, and it cost me a spot. But all in all, another good finish, and look forward. I guess the All-Star race is next week, and then we'll move forward from there.
Another solid run for you in this rookie campaign for you, Charles. You had a really good effort at Kentucky, and of course, again here tonight. What has been the biggest learning curve for you so far through these opening rounds?
The new horsepower, the new configuration of these cars. I'm still, I'm usually one to save tires, run the bottom, let everyone use their stuff up, and then come. It's just a little different here because my let off points are definitely a little different. I'm finding myself burning tires a little bit more than usual. Um, but just trying to keep the car clean, keep the tires under me, and just finish as many races, top 10, top 5 as I can, and worry about pushing hard in the chase if I get there.
We'll see if that ends up happening, Charles, after our All Star break, which is next week. You'll be running in the Open. We'll be racing each other in that Open. What do you think is going to be the key to the next week's race in the Open to try and make it through, especially with the news that we'll be running with the extra horsepower that iRacing's implemented as balance of performance?
I mean, I'm not really a fan of the the All Star race, regardless. But if it's I don't know if it's I'll test out the 110 horse or 110% power, horsepower, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's going to be a fun race. I mean, it doesn't point. It's not a points paying race, so people hopefully don't drive over their head, and we actually run. And we go green to green here, which surprisingly a big track. I mean, I've run in other leagues, and always cautions at this track because people don't know where people are at coming out of the turn. So kudos to everyone there, but. We'll see. We'll see if I'm there next week with the All Star race, and then we'll go from there.
We'll see when we get there next time out, Charles. Anybody you want to give a shout out to that helps makes this happen for you and the whole 23 team?
Yeah, I mean the admins doing a great job putting together the league. Um, view for the broadcast. My teammate Sammy wasn't here tonight. I really was at a disadvantage. Me and Sammy are pretty good drafting partners. Whether it's on these type of tracks, Michigan, the super speedway, that's where me and him excel. So probably would have been a little different story if I had him here. And then to my company, Goat Racing Diecast, goatracingdiecast.com. We do lives every Sunday. We pay retail, free shipping. We don't mark stuff up. We sell door numbers at retail if I pull them. We have customs, apparel, merchandise, sponsorships. So if anyone's looking, check out the website and reach out to us.
We wish you the best of luck going forward. Congratulations on your podium finish tonight here from the Auto Club Speed. We hope to see you out there next week.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
That's Charles Van Schaik, finisher in the podium this evening as we wrap things up here from our post-race show here on the KBueno Racing Network after a flag-to-flag affair here from Auto Club. What a job it was by everybody to help make that happen. Of being able to not see the yellow flag tonight on the fuel mileage run that we saw that Steven Stemping was able to come out on top of. And now we sit here now facing our All-Star break. It is going to be a fun one next time out from the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the doubleheader of the All-Star race, followed by the main race of 250 laps the week afterwards to round out our month of April. Here for Droppin' the Hammah, Kenneth Bueno should be back and on the call for that one. Like I said, I'll be out there on the All-Star Open. Have to race my way into the All-Star race. Hopefully I can finish within the top 3, which is what the drivers will have to do if they want to qualify for the main race. And as previously stated, 50 laps, 35, and 15 are the segments for our All-Star race. No rules except for that opening segment. A green flag pit stop has to be made. Big Q, just you have to make it. Doesn't say what you have to do, just you have to make it. So we'll see what the strategies end up being when we get there, what everything ends up happening, and then we'll be set. Everyone's going to be looking to try and fight for those final 15 laps to try and win the whole thing, to win that prize money, that determined prize money. We still don't know what it is, but we'll see what league admins decide is the best case scenario when we get to that point. That'll wrap things up here from us on the KBueno Racing Network. If you want to catch some more racing on this channel throughout the week, be sure to join us on Wednesday night for the 4Wide Racing TJ Series from the Bristol Motor Speedway. It is going to be the second race of the second round, looking to try and see if any of the drivers can lock themselves a spot in the Championship 5 after Ethan Fonseca Moreno's win last time out at Kansas. Be sure to join us Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern for live coverage. Kenneth Bueno, myself, Keelan Belsh will be on the call. Be sure to join us on Thursday night for the SAC Cup Series action. We're moving closer and closer in the um, closer towards the chase, the eliminator chase, and we are rounding out our regular season. We're cutting down the number of races left. We're heading over to Circuit of the Americas for road course racing for what is the third time this season already. So we're going to see if James Thurston can continue his hot run on the road courses with another win there. He'll be looking to try and defend that on Thursday at 8:45 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to join Kenneth Bueno, Nate Polite, and Mikey Neal for that one, and continuing the midseason madness challenge over from that series. And of course, we'll be back here next Sunday for all-star racing action on the KBueno Racing Network. From everybody that helps make this happen, I'm dropping the hammer from Steven Stempian, from Warren Kyle Keith, from the rest of the admins, Jason Anderson, and the likes of them, from everybody that helps make this put together on the KBueno Racing Network. Kenneth Bueno, who was covering Monster Jam action in South Carolina this weekend. We appreciate everything he does that helps put these shows together. I merely just click a couple of buttons. He does all the real hard work, so appreciate everything he does on putting together these packages and these films together for me to use, for me to put these shows out there. Hope to see him out this week and next time out again. And thank you to everybody for joining us this evening for a fantastic race here from the Auto Club Speedway. I am Francisco Bacalhau saying so long and have a good night. Congratulations on Steven Stempian for a second win on the season, and we hope to see you out there for the All-Star race next time out.